Hello, everyone. Teacher Emily here, and welcome back to our Go Talk to English podcast. Today, we are celebrating a very special observance here in the United States of Black History Month. And to talk about Black History Month and Black culture, please welcome my guest, Kai Davis.
Hello.
Welcome, Kai. Thank you so much for coming today. So for our viewers, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Kai. I am 24 years old. I work for Walmart and I've been living here for all of my life.
Like myself, Kai here is a Native American. He was born here in the United States, and it's all we've ever known. So, Black History Month. In the United States, we observe it for the whole entire month of February. It wasn't until 1976 that it actually became this official thing that we talk about. Like, hey, so let me ask you, Kai, what does Black History Month mean to you?
Honestly, History Month for me is a kind of like look into history. It's kind of like these are the things that happened at the time, and this is something that we need to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
These things occur, and we need to observe them so that we do not make those kinds of mistakes leading into the future.
Right. And with Black History Month, it's where we don't just observe, the impact African Americans have had historically, but also culturally.
Mm-hmm.
There are music, television, so many breakthroughs where we have had African Americans just break through the mold and become these beacons of inspiration.
That's true.
Um, we like to celebrate all the achievements and recognize that even though there are sad times in history, there are points where we rise, overcome, and advance.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And that's definitely one of the exciting things about history is sometimes, you get to see things play out and then you get to live it. You get to wake up in the moment and be like, wow, it worked.
Right.
So, one of the things I'm going to point out to our viewers is that you are actually a mixed race person.
Mm-hmm.
Like myself, I am also of mixed race. I'm multiracial. For me, I am African American, Mexican, and Filipino.
Nice.
So, yes, and this month's theme for Black History is Black family representation and identity. And as a mixed race person, and I'll ask you about your opinion about it, but it's always been definitely a very interesting viewpoint on it. Because for me, Black History Month, it's an opportunity for me to discover more about my past, about my culture, my ancestry. Because one of the things that's hard about being, an African American is that you get to a certain point in history and it just stops. The
Yeah.
paper ends and you're just left with this big blank.
Yeah, there's no like in-depth personal history.
Right.
It's just a cutoff. There's no
Yes.
nowhere to go.
Yes. And, in my personal experience, there was that big question mark in my bloodline. So it definitely encouraged me to seek out what was behind it. What am I? What makes up me? So that's what really drove me to pick up one of those DNA kits. Because I was like, I want to know. I got to know so many questions. Because how you're brought up, it can really shape the kind of person you are. What kind of cultures are really heavily instilled, in just all your core values.
Mm-hmm. And how you carry yourself and how you go about your days, interactions with other people, and shape everything. Shape exactly who you are.
Growing up, what was the Black family to you?
For me, growing up with like an ideal black family or my black family?
Ideally, what's the ideal black family?
Well, an ideal black family for me was, from what I saw, what I've seen on TV, things like that was, it was a black man, black husband, the husband is doing well, has a job and is, taking care of himself and the kid and the wife, and everyone's happy, buy toys and all the fun stuff, and, video games and, just be there for the kids and all the fun stuff. I was like,
sounds like a normal family.
Yeah, like an everyday family.
Absolutely normal.
It was like that's like an American dream, just to have a stable life, a kid, and everything to be fine.
One of the problems that people like you and I face is when we turn on our televisions or when we go to watch a movie, that's not what we see. That is not how the black family is represented.
Yeah, that's definitely not always the case at all.
So with me, my parents separated. They divorced when I was younger. And then we moved, and I moved to a very rural country area in the South. And so when these kids, they would look at me and they would notice, oh, you don't have a dad. It had nothing to do with me being black. It had nothing to do with that, but it was just like, oh, yeah, of course you don't have a dad. You're a black person. Yeah. And it stings. It stings. It definitely, it hurts.
It is a terrible experience to have. But it's frequent too. Like, it happens all the time. I've had another similar experience where my parents also got divorced at a young age, and I've got stuck here in, Oklahoma, and
what can you do?
There's nothing you can do about it. Like you'll get judged for literally anything. It's terrible.
Right. So another thing about black family representation is there is a large, let's say, stereotype. There's a large insinuation that the black family is very stoic, very unfeeling, unsympathetic, very hard.
Right.
And is that what it's like? Is the black family very stern and strict and just hard feeling?
No, that's by absolutely no means the case. It's just like any other family. They love and care, and they want to be. There's pain, there's love, there's joy. It's human emotion. We all have it.
Of course, everyone likes to envision, the angry black mother who, is always shouting things, or everyone likes to talk about the black father that goes and sits in his chair and doesn't say anything.
Right.
And there's definitely a little bit of cultural circumstance that goes into these. You look at American history and you see the obstacles that African Americans had to overcome. They had a very different mindset. Living life was not about living, it was about survival. It was the mentality that if you were soft, if, you let up, then somebody wasn't going to return home at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I really think it comes out of a place of fear and just that want to just protect somebody, and that frustration of knowing that you can't always protect them.
Yeah, at literally any moment they can just be taken from you just because of their skin color, and that is an absolutely terrible thing. Like, I can't imagine just walking out in a day-to-day, experience just hoping that I don't die that day. That's terrible.
So let me ask you, when your parents separated, did you ever feel like you were fulfilling this kind of statistical prophecy?
Oh, at the time, no, because I didn't really see it like that. For me, it was more of like getting away from something that needed to just be done with in the first place.
Right.
There's a lot of stupid mistakes and things happen, that's just how it happens. It's terrible.
Life happens. And, I love these type of cultural observances because we get to see that we're not alone. Yeah. We are not the only people that, that go through these things, that feel this way, that heal this way and recover this way. And it's very reassuring. It's very reassuring to look at somebody and be like, wow, you're like me.
Right. We're all very unique in our experiences and everything, but we all can share parts of the story, and it helps to carry on.
Mhm. So, as a mixed race person, have you ever had to face any challenges with your identity?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've had challenges with my identity since I was a little kid. I remember I used to tell my mom and dad, I was like, my dad is black, my mom is white, and I am brown.
Right. It's like
I didn't know any difference. Like, it was just
you almost have to create your own category, because at the end of the day, you're not really just one or the other. You're a it, you know?
Yeah. Even in like school paperworks and things like that, trying to fill in the blank was like, do I fill in white or do I fill in black? I'm like, what do I
Which one's more important,
which
you know?
choices?
It's like, which one matters?
Yeah. Like, are they gonna? And also another thing is like, are they gonna look at me differently if I put down white or blacks? Because that's another thing. Like, that's a whole different thing. That's crazy to me.
As a multicultural person, have you ever had to face the struggle of not being black enough?
Yeah, no, absolutely. All through as a matter of fact, it was all through middle school and a lot of high school. It was just like I was not I wasn't talking the way I should have. I wasn't dressing the way I should have. I didn't have the piercings. It's like me being me was not good enough to fit in. So I was always the kid, kind of separated myself, sat at the back of the bus and tried to avoid people, all trouble and everything, just because I didn't want to deal with it. It was terrible, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, and
Oh, that's how it was. Now,
no, I mean,
different story,
it's hard. It's hard. And I think a lot of people will agree that when you're a kid, things are significantly worse. They seem like at such higher magnitudes because you got nothing going on. You don't have any bills. You don't have
that's
any.
all of your life.
Yeah,
Exactly.
your health is
all you
okay.
know.
So it's all you have are your social bonds and connections and basically just your reputation. And
Mhm.
so kids can be relentlessly mean and just not understand that it's mean. It won't hit them till 3 years later, like, oh my gosh, that was a terrible thing to do. Like, that wasn't fun.
Right.
We could have died, you
Mhm.
know? But yes, that is something I'll definitely agree with you on. There is, you see a lot of these cultural niches, these groups, and it's like, okay, I'm part black, so let me go hang out with the black group. And then they kind of look at you and like, you're not cooked all the way. It's like,
Right.
and then they tell you, well, you talk white. Well, you
I've had
act
that
white.
said
Well, why do
so
you
many
dress?
times.
Why do you dress white?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very strange because in my head, I'm wearing clothes. In my
Yeah.
head, I'm speaking English.
Yeah, like there's no difference for me. Like it has never changed.
And so then, go over. It's like, okay, so definitely stick out like a sore thumb against the authentically black kids. So
Mhm.
we'll go over. We'll go hang out with my Latinas and my Hispanics. Hola, ¿cómo estás? And that's when they look at me and like, wait a second, do you even speak Spanish? And it's like, no.
Not really.
I meant to learn, and they kind of look at me and it's like, you're pretty dark for a Mexican. Are you sure you're supposed to be here? It's like, nah, you're not a Mexican. You don't even have an accent or anything. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
when was the last time you danced to Selena? I'm just like,
Right.
where are your maracas? Where's your sombrero? Where's your poncho and your mustache? Like,
Yeah,
what
right.
are you supposed to be? And it got to the point where I just kind of went with whatever people decided for me. I looked around me and I got embarrassed for being black. I was embarrassed. I was a little ashamed. Like, I didn't want people to know. And I
Right.
even fell into the toxic trap mentality that, oh, if I keep my skin nice and light and bright, I'll have a better time. I'll have an easier time.
Right.
But, it only went so far, because to the white kids, I'm a black person, to a Mexican, I'm the black person, and then to the
Yep.
black people, well, I'm nobody.
You
you know,
fit in nowhere.
and it wasn't until one night I was upset. I was doing my hair, and the people who can see us now, because some people are just listening, but the people who can see us can see that my hair is straightened. And
Mhm.
for a very, very long time, I straightened my hair because I genuinely believed I was not attractive with my natural hair texture. So I would stay up straightening my hair in the wee hours on a school night, to the point of frustration, because I'm a kid. I just want to get it over with, and I'm burning my fingers.
Mhm.
And then just having these just little breakdowns about how much I hate my dark skin, how much I hate my curly hair, or my big flat nose, or my big lips.
Yep.
And it was that one night where my father, I'll never forget the look on his face. It just looked so sad. And then he looks at me just dead in my eye and just earnestly says, "I'm really sorry that your father's black." And it wasn't until then that I really realized what hating my identity and what that conflict was really doing. In my head, it was just a me issue,
But
but
uh,
it was so powerful, so strong, that it made me, it broke my heart. It broke my heart that I made him feel that way.
mhm.
And I don't think it was until then that I actually started trying to have some pride in who I was and where I came from. But at the same time, it's also a constant struggle to pander to those groups. You might be familiar with the term code switching.
Yeah.
Ever do some code switching? For our viewers, code switching refers to changing your way of speaking and your verbal mannerisms to better fit your audience.
Yep. To match the group that you're within. Mhm.
Match the group that you're in. And I don't know. It's very exhausting, honestly,
Yeah.
and that's really one of the reasons why I don't do it. I like to do it for jokes,
Mhm.
but this is how I talk. Hey, well, man, I'm saying, man, we were sitting here, man, we sitting here, we talking, and we doing this, and we doing it,
Yeah.
I get it, like there's nothing stopping me from doing that except for just doing that.
Right.
And basically, with the whole code switching thing, is I love accents. As
Why?
being a language teacher and someone who just has just such a love for language itself, I love accents, because your language communicates your story, but the accent, it tells the history.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the things with our students is they're like, "Oh, I need your help with my pronunciation." So we sit down. It's like, "What's wrong with it?" And they go, "Well, I sound like a Mexican. I sound like a Spanish person." It's like, "Well, aren't you?"
Yeah. So what?
It's like, well, and it's like, is that a bad thing? And it's like, that's okay. My
Mhm.
boss has a little bit of a thick Spanish accent, and I love it. I love
Mhm.
listening to her talk. She goes, "Ems, sweetie, I need you to do this for me. I need you to do that." And it's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, that's like yes. But it's so beautiful, because with the Latin language, it's a very soft language. It's very,
Mhm.
very romantic. The mouth is very touching. It's very airy,
Mhm.
like a whisper.
Yeah, love
And
bombing.
and it's just, and so, every time she speaks, it just sounds so comforting, and just she could
Mhm.
yell at me in Spanish, and it
And then just be like,
it has an entire different attitude in English, and I would be
Mhm.
terrified if she did. I hope she never ever does. But yeah, it's the same thing. Is, a lot of times Americans try to learn English, and it's like, "Hola, compadre, como estás? Me amo,
Yeah.
Stacy." But and that's the kind of code switching that you think about. It's like, oh, I'm in a Mexican restaurant. Let me bust out my Spanish and impress
Right.
people.
Yeah.
So you have Ebonics, which refers to the common slang used in African American culture,
hmm
but it's optional.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. And what I really, what is really important to me is being able to show people that what you see in the movies and the TV shows and on Netflix, it's not always accurate, and it's not always telling the full side of the story.
Right.
Some people might see us and be, "Oh, wow, they talk really well." Whereas
Right.
to other people, it's like, "Yeah, so?" It's
Right.
it's no thing. So quickly, moving on to our second part, representation of identity. Growing up, how important was it for you to see someone that looked like you on the big screens or on posters or on cereal boxes?
Honestly, when I saw it, it was pretty impactful. Because it was like, oh, or it's like if I saw a mixed kid do
Mhm.
really well, if I saw a black person do really well, it's like, oh, hey, look, they actually did that well. Or you see a black artist come up with their songs and stuff, and it's like, hey, look, somebody else can do that. I can do that too, which is a good thing. Like that's
What was
definitely.
your moment? What was your moment where you were like, "Wow, like that's me,"
Uh, honestly, what I'm gonna say is the artist Logic when he started coming up, I was like, yay, that's really cool. Like,
Awesome. Oh yeah, I totally forgot about Logic. Yeah, I
mhm.
mean,
And he's doing,
I
his
forget
own
about the
family
music
thing now.
industry.
Yeah, dude, I love music. Music's like my favorite thing in the world.
I'm such a TV show and cinema person. I'm honestly more movies than anything.
And that's
Uh,
the exact opposite for me. Like I can't stand movies, but I'll listen to music all hours of a day.
for me, um, growing up as a girl definitely posed some challenges. Because it's like, pick one. Do you want to be represented as a female or as an African American? You can't have both.
Right.
So, I grew up during the era of the neo Disney princesses. First they brought on Tiana, and that was a big thing because we had our first African American Disney princess. But again, I looked at her and I'm like, I'm not full African American. I even with my natural hair, I cannot aspire to look like that. There is a physical uh what's it
Like
called?
restraint to that. Like
Yeah,
restrict.
there's only so far that I can go, and so it's like it's kind of nice, but oftentimes, as a kid, you play pretend and you play make believe, and when it was time for us to pick characters, guess who always had to be the black character?
Yep.
And it's like you don't get to pick. You don't get to be Beast Boy or Robin. You have to be
Right.
Cyborg or
Right.
Bumblebee. And it's like and
It's like why?
yeah, and so
It's like, I don't
it
even like that character. Not because they're black, just because I don't like the character.
but that was the thing, is that it cheapens the experience. It's like, well, now, like, I don't like just because I'm black and that person's black, it's like, now it's like, oh wow, it's you. It's like, okay,
Right?
that's
Yeah. The comparisons are terrible.
so
Always like, oh
then
yeah, hey, look, that's you. No, that's not me.
so then of course there is I forget her name, but there's a Disney show for kids that features a Hispanic princess. So that came out and it was like, oh yeah, good for them, yay, yay, yay. But still, didn't really care. Moana comes out and it's like, oh, okay. It's like, well, at least this one looks more like me. But again, strange because, kind of catering to the Filipino in me, but I'm an African American Mexican with a little dash of Filipino. I am not Moana. I am not
Right.
Hawaiian. I am not Pacific Islander. But I could definitely dress up as one. So I mean, I guess that counts. The big moment, my big oh wow moment, did not happen until I watched the new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I still need to watch that.
And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but the main character, Miles Morales,
Mm-hmm.
has a Latina mom and a black dad,
Mm-hmm.
just like me.
It made waves for
And
me.
I never knew that going into the movie. I didn't read the comic books, I didn't know the lore, and so just sitting there and seeing this beautiful Latina walk in her Spanish accent, yelling at her son, in Spanish, she
Uh-huh.
was like, "That's my mom," and then seeing this big stoic hulking African American guy, being all stern and tough love, like that's my dad, and it's like I could be a superhero, but even at the age, I want to say I was maybe 20, 21, 22, it fills you with such joy and
Mm-hmm.
childlike excitement that it's like, that could be me.
Yeah, it
I could
definitely
be
changes you. Yeah,
Spider-Man.
it gives you drive. It makes you want to go out and do something and become something, and that's the good thing about movies and being able to represent role models and things like that. Because that's good. Like you want to be able to feel good about yourself, and be able to be comfortable in your own skin and how you lived your life.
And I feel like Black History Month really is almost like a calling for people to get in on the cultural ancestry to really inform themselves, because a really important English word I'm going to teach you guys today is the word ignorant.
Mhm.
And oftentimes in an English conversation, you will hear this word used negatively, used as a derogatory insult. Might say, "Kai, you're ignorant." But the true fact is that ignorance, the definition is to not know something, to not have knowledge about something. In the
Mhm.
grand scheme of things, to be ignorant is no more wrong than to breathe.
Yeah.
As humans, we don't know everything, and we can't be expected to know everything. And so I am perfectly content with admitting that there are certain things that I'm ignorant about, but that's what makes it so fun, is being
Yeah.
able to discover and learn and just grow.
Yeah, see, that's the thing about ignorance. Ignorance is only good when you ignorance is only bad when you hold on to it.
Mm-hmm,
Being
mm-hmm.
ignorant about something isn't bad as long as you learn about it, or things like that. It's easy. It's a rather
And
simple thing to fix.
right, you have to be open to learning. You have to be
Mhm.
open to these new experiences. You can't just say there's nothing beyond the wall. There's nothing beyond, because
Right, you can't be
there's
stuck in your ways.
so much. Yeah. So, yeah, as a gamer, a female gamer, I love video games, and being a girl, one of the biggest litmus tests of girl gaming is choose your character based on the looks. Who's the
Mhm.
cutest? Who's got the best outfit? Who's got the nicest hair? And as you get older, you start learning about actual, stats and
Mhm.
maneuvers and things.
The things that matter. Mhm.
But my favorite game, like my favorite casual game, is Animal Crossing. And I almost cried. Almost cried, because in the newest installment of the series, you can actually choose your skin tone. Whereas previously, you had to be a fair skinned character, and the only time that your skin could brown was in the summertime via a tanning mechanic.
Right.
And so my fiance was at work, and he was talking about it to one of his coworkers. Yeah, my girl's all excited because she can finally be brown in Animal Crossing. Just talking, not thinking anything of it. And the response he got was, "Well, why would she want to do that?" But that seems to kind of that's my general view on it as well. As I look at these games and I look at the limitations, And it feels like these movies, these video games, these toys, they were made without people like me in mind, where people don't really realize that people like me exist, that a brown person would want to be brown,
Right.
And I believe, that's why I believe representation is so important. It's so important for children and other people to see that they can achieve these amazing things and be able to see themselves in
Right.
these dreams and positions and aspirations. But yeah, do you have anything to add?
I mean, along with that last part there, I agree that representation is a very good thing to have.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I feel like something with Animal Crossing would be like, well, like the ignorance thing we were just talking about before. It's like, it's not necessarily that they were, excluding you specifically. It's just they didn't know, right?
And that's the thing, is that with Animal Crossing, it is a Japanese game. Nintendo is a company. If you live in Japan and you are surrounded by Japanese people, it's not really going to cross your mind that, oh, hey, maybe someone out there might want to be like, look like an African American person. It makes complete sense. There doesn't have to be any malicious intent behind it, but that's why representation is so important, so that way you don't forget that, hey, there's a whole nother color wheel out there.
Right. That's fair.
So before we close out, I just want to end on one note and one statement. With the Ancestry DNA test, I was able to tap into my actual specific regional roots. I found out that I come from Mali, Cameroon, and Nigeria. That's my African cocktail. And so very exciting. I'm really looking forward to learning about, the different tribes and the areas that I come from, and just being able to something about it, know what I'm talking about.
Right, it's so good to be able to do that now too, because like before, we didn't have any history books or anything to give us any sort of information about our personal history, but now we can just go get a blood test and there it is. It's like we can go back and look at all of our history, and I want to do that too. Like that's my next goal to do.
So for all of my boys and girls, men, women, and lovely people of all ages, I want to say this to you. Don't let anything stop you. We are in a technological age of endless possibilities. We have the answers to so many questions at our fingertips, and even more with the people around us. For me, representation is Miss Estelle Johnson, a Malian footballer who plays for the Cameroon football team. She's a defender. For me, representation is Miss Rashida Jones, who is Cameroonian and a wonderful actress and just a phenomenal person. Representation is Miss Bessie Coleman, the first African American woman to make a transatlantic flight. Right there. I could
That's
be
awesome.
a footballer. I could be a actress. I could be a pilot, because all these women, they look like me. I can see my face in their face. And the biggest one, Miss Kamala Harris, the first female African American vice president.
Yes.
That is what representation is. That is
Yep.
what representation is.
That is
And
representation. That's wonderful.
we gotta set good examples. We gotta trailblaze. Sometimes we have to clear the path and set the way, but anything is possible.
Yep.
Anything is possible. Well, Kai, I want to thank you so much for joining me for this very special podcast. You have been so insightful, and I know that our viewers are going to enjoy that sultry, chocolatey voice. Even your laugh is just so happy. So wow. And that smile, my goodness,
That's how
those
I am.
teeth. All right. So would you like to say anything before we close out?
Honestly, the only thing I have to say is just be safe, take care, and keep your head up.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me for this English podcast. I have been your host, Teacher Emily. And don't forget to check us out at www.gotalkto.com. And be sure to check out our astrology club for all your spiritual and starry needs. Thank you so much, and bye.